Thank you so much for joining this training that I'm going to be doing tonight. I've got the fans going. I'm very pregnant, you can see. I've got the fans going because it's very hot. It's very hot in London. Hi Claire, how are you? I've got loads to share with you tonight. If you can't stay for the whole thing, please don't worry. Just grab a piece of paper and a pen. As I mentioned, I'm recording it as a podcast as well. So you can go back over, you can take notes, you can ask questions, you can do any of that. I'm just going to have a sip of water and then let's get going. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I'm so glad. So why am I doing this tonight? Okay, it's July the 1st, tomorrow, which is part 2 of 2019. And I feel really passionate about these significant points in the year or at the beginning of the month, because I always find there's two sides of the coin. On the one hand, there's this moment of like, yes, let's do it. I'm really charged and all the rest of it, and very future focused and thinking about what's to come. But on the other side, sometimes there's this sense of, I haven't done enough, or, well, it's nearly Christmas and I haven't really got where I wanted to go in the first 6 months. So what's the point? Maybe I should shelve this to the next year, or maybe this isn't for me, or whatever it might be. And I think this is why I focus on these 3 things with my clients. Hello, welcome. Is about the vision, the strategy, and the mindset. And also, just to add another layer to this mix, I was somebody for years who would see what happened. I would wait and see. I would hope for the best. I would wait for somebody to give me permission because I had that imposter syndrome, that who am I to do this? All of this stuff. And even though I'm a motivated and proactive person, there were things that held me back. So that's why I think it's important to look at these 3 points of the triangle: the vision, the strategy, and the mindset. I'm going to have hiccups now, pregnancy hiccups, brilliant. So looking at the vision is something we're going to look at tonight. And think about actually what you want, where you're going, what you're doing. Secondly, thinking about the strategy. So in very basic coaching terms, where are you now and where do you want to get to? And thirdly, the mindset stuff, as in putting together your success toolkit that is going to move you forward and support you, almost like it was a living, breathing thing on the side where you can kind of, it's cheering you on along the way. But also looking at those things that stop you every time. Those old stories, those habits, those things that get in the way that probably now, because you're a grown-up, you recognise time and time again. Or they're kind of the same stories but in a different outfit. So why is this important to do this right now? Okay, so the thing is, when you make a plan, I know this might sound really obvious, but I think sometimes we have to go back to basics, because there's so much stuff, there's so much stuff online, we're bombarded with so much stuff, we see so much of what is going on in other people's lives or businesses, or people sharing pictures from their yachts or whatever. I haven't got any pictures from yachts for you tonight. I might have a dinghy one occasionally, we'll see. But the first thing why this is really important is because if you have a plan in place for whatever this is, life, business, whatever, everything starts to feel a lot more manageable. And the thing is, when things feel a bit more manageable and a bit more in control, you are more than likely to make more progress, because everything will feel like it's becoming a bit more aligned. Everything will feel like it's a lot more doable. And for me, when I'm in momentum, when I'm doing stuff, when I put on my trainers, and not that I'm running a lot at the moment by any means, but last year when I got into running a lot, I found the first bit, putting on the trainers, the hardest bit. If I went out for a 20-minute run, by about 12 minutes, 13 minutes, I was feeling great because I was in momentum and I was in motion. And when I was in that headspace, I was like, I can do anything. 20 minutes, I'm going to do 30 minutes. And I was in that really hyped, excited state. And I think that's something that really, sometimes I think we feel like we have to wait until we feel ready, or we have to wait for the perfect time, or whatever it might be. But one thing I want to share with you is that it's really important in the second half. Sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, or sometimes if things are not happening quick enough, just stay in the game. Keep moving, keep emailing, keep showing up, keep doing all of the things on a very basic level sometimes. It doesn't have to be all the bells and whistles, but keep opening the shop. So you may run something that's completely online, or it's a service-based business or things like that, but always have that sense of opening the shop. Because I think sometimes this comes up for my clients where people go, oh, I haven't done that for a while. Or I was emailing my list, but then it kind of like stopped. Or I was getting really into Instagram and then I ran out of juice. Well, if you think about your business as an actual physical place where maybe you have the Instagram room, or you have the email marketing room, you have the networking room, if you're not covering all of those things on a regular basis, it's almost like you've just closed off those rooms and they don't exist. So once you're in momentum, you will make more progress. And finally, the reason that I want you to make this plan is that everything will start to feel a bit more real. And everything will start to feel like this is actually a thing that you're doing. I meet so many people who almost feel like they're playing at their business. And I know where that comes from sometimes, because starting something or taking something to the next level, or declaring that you're doing something, can feel like a really bold move. It can feel scary. It can feel exposing. You can feel vulnerable. You can feel like there's somebody better out there who is going to be more equipped for doing the job that you're trying to do. So what we do in those circumstances sometimes, even when we're in a business situation, is we kind of play small and we say we're just sort of working on this thing on the side, or I don't need it to make loads of money if I can just do X, Y, and Z. I did a post about this a little while ago where so many clients, especially when we talk about money, what do you want to make this year? What are your money goals? People go, if I can just pay my half of the bill, or the bills of the annual income or whatever, then I'll be really happy. And of course, because I am who I am, I'm always pushing people as a coach to go a bit further, to get really excited, because of course, like, I want to pay my bills. I do pay my bills. I'm very meticulous about that. I know exactly what's going in and out, and planning for the future and all of that sort of stuff. But paying my British gas bill doesn't excite me to the point of saving up money to go on holiday, or any of those sort of things, or making moves in my business that I know are going to be really game changing. So I want to check in with all of those things every step of the way to maybe look at why you might be resisting a plan. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of this training, I used to resist this plan for a while. For some reason, I associated with planning too much as people who were a bit straight, or a bit dull, or a bit kind of regimented or rigid. And what I ended up doing was having none of the fundamental pieces in place. Every single day I was just kind of waiting, and I was in this limbo type situation. And now that I do plan and I think about things, do you know what? I actually get more of the stuff that I want, and I end up doing more of the things that I enjoy, and everything just feels a bit easier and free flowing. And you'll hear me say these words a lot. I am all about ease and flow. I am having a baby in a couple of months' time, my second child, and I don't want stress in my life. I don't want drama in my life. Who knows what this little one will bring? We just don't know. Of course you don't. But equally, I know there are some people who love to gossip, or they love like the chase, or they love, I don't know, the unpredictable nature of things. And I know over the years I have been in those circumstances, but actually it's not for me. Okay, so why am I doing this now? Well, I do my goal setting usually in November because I'm a November birthday and I like to plan for the following year. And that's a really good time to be reflective for me, and a year usually really works. However, in November when I did my planning for 2019, I didn't realise I was pregnant. And this is not like a random thing, like I just met this guy, obviously, but it kind of threw things up into the air because this baby kind of arrived or was conceived this is maybe a bit TMI, so sorry, conceived a little bit earlier than perhaps I planned. I sort of thought 2019 would be great to start thinking about having another one. However, this little one was like, I'm here, let's do this. So, very quickly in November, I was very ill, and that continued until about February. And I think sometimes what we can do is we can have all the plans on paper, we can have all of the ideas, but actually they need to be tweaked sometimes because life gets in the way. So even though a year feels a good thing to do sometimes, actually reassessing things and looking at them every 6 months or every quarter, every 90 days, every month even, is going to really help you to drill down and check in with what exactly is going on. So the things that I would love you to take away from tonight is I want you to regain a bit of focus, to really assess where you are, where you're going, what's going on, and really sort of zoom in on things a little bit and check out what's happening and where you're spending your time and if you're actually on track and all that good stuff. The second thing I want you to do is to be able to be more productive. We're all really short on time. We're all pulled in all kinds of different directions. We all have responsibilities in life where sometimes with the best will in the world or the best plan in the world, somebody else takes our focus or needs our attention or whatever it might be. So I want to help you to build a system that is going to allow you to be productive. So you don't have that day, especially like tomorrow morning on a Monday, where I actually love Mondays, but sometimes people go, okay, the pressure of Monday, I've got to change everything. I've got to start my new healthy eating routine. I've got to be super tired. I've got to be the best parent I'm going to be. And I'm going to bust through this huge to-do list in my business. That's a lot of pressure. And usually by about 10:30 on a Monday morning, people can have that moment of going, this feels a lot. This feels overwhelming. I don't know what to focus on first. Is any of this going to work? I just don't know where to go from this moving forward. The third thing I want you to take away is a renewed excitement and love for what it is that you're doing. Social media is a wonderful, brilliant thing, but sometimes it can really drag us down and suck the energy out of us and feel like we're not doing enough, we're not being enough, that everybody is ahead of us. And I want you to be able to turn that lens back on yourself and go, actually, what I'm doing is great and I feel good about it and I feel excited about it. So have that renewed sense of self. Another few things I want you to look at tonight is for you to identify where you're maybe hiding, what you're avoiding, and where you're playing small. Again, to go back to this moment, sometimes we can feel like we're not ready. We're not at the point where we're able to do that. And I don't know what that reason is. Sometimes it's a combination of things, like it's fear, or it's imposter syndrome, or it's comparison, or we don't feel like we're quite ready because we haven't done another 2 degrees in that, or maybe what we're doing nobody else in our family has done before. So it feels like a new thing, like we have to justify it, or it's not a kind of proper job. Sometimes I have this thing when I do acting work where when I get a day's filming of acting, it's a ridiculous amount of money per filming day. That's just the industry that it is. And for some reason afterwards, I always get this kind of guilty hangover feeling. Almost like, sorry, I've got hiccups, very pregnant. Almost like I get this guilty hangover of, surely I can't enjoy this as much as I do and get paid for it. So a lot of these things are really deep embedded within us. So I want you to notice, hi Kerry, where you're playing small maybe, and where perhaps you're allowing yourself to be chaotic and not actually get the things done that you need to do. So sometimes this could be me asking people when I meet people for work or something like that, how are you doing? How's things going? And there was a real sort of trend, especially on Instagram, where people were just saying they were winging it. Like, I've no idea what I'm doing. I'm just kind of going with the flow, or I'm hoping for the best. And people would talk about their business as some like wild, crazy Glastonbury experience in the distance. And so what I want you to take away from tonight is to really own what you're doing and really connect with it again and realise how far you've come and how capable you are of doing what it is that you say that you're going to do. How qualified you are, how skilled you are, how experienced you are, how you're an expert. My little son went out yesterday for like an Italian lunch with his grandparents and his daddy. I was out with a friend yesterday and he had a pizza from the pizza oven, and he said to Matt, my partner, wow, that man is a real expert at what he does. And this man, for all we knew, he could have just started out. It could have been his first shift, his first kind of moment of being in charge of the pizzas. But in terms of my son's eyes, he was looking and going, wow, he's really great. He knows what he's doing. So even if you don't feel like you're the best in your industry, or you're not the best kind of in your, I don't know, your small network or whatever it might be, or even if you feel like you're just starting out or you're beginning a new chapter, please remember all the transferable skills you have, all the things that you can bring to the table, because they're all ready and waiting for you. All right, we're going to do an assessment of the last 6 months now. So I want you to write down whatever you can around this. This is not about forming perfect sentences. It's not about making things perfect. It's not about judgment necessarily. It's about just getting down whatever comes to mind and whatever springs to mind. So thinking for the first part of the year, from January to June, what has been going on? I want you just to take some time now, and if you want to come back to these questions at a later date, as I mentioned, I'm recording this as a podcast as well, so you can do this in your own time. But also don't let yourself procrastinate, because I know sometimes people will want to have that moment of, I need the perfect 2 hours to be able to do that, or I need the perfect notebook, or I like to do these things in my best writing. What I'm urging you to do, hello, is to check in with what's going on right now and start to make progress. Because sometimes, even when I do journaling, even though people are like, oh, I do 45 minutes of journaling every day, and I think, how do you have time to do that? Sometimes I'll just muse on an idea, like 1 or 2 sentences or something like that, and then on the walk back from taking my son to nursery, I've solved it, or something has come up, and therefore I've made progress and I've moved forward in my business. So I want you to think about what's been going on for the last 6 months for you. And what have been the real positives? So where have you been winning? What has been the stuff that has gone really well? So you could look at it in terms of the 3 things that I mentioned at the beginning of the training, in terms of vision, strategy, and mindset. So maybe it could be a small thing where your mindset has kept you small, your mindset has maybe kept you from networking or selling to people, any of those types of things. So I want you to give yourself a pat on the back, however small. Maybe you've been really organised and stuck to your vision. Maybe you've done what you said that you were going to do. So really write down all the positives and all the wins of the stuff that's been going on. And again, it doesn't have to be the Nobel Peace Prizes. This is about you and really celebrating all the things. I also want you to think about the changes that you've made, for good or for bad. Now, clearly I mentioned at the beginning of having a pregnancy at the beginning of this year, I've had to make some changes. There's been things that I've had to put on the back burner that were maybe like the London Marathon was off the cards pretty quickly because I knew that I wouldn't want to run it in a pregnant state. But equally, some things that maybe were in the mix of stuff that I wanted to do, like I wanted to do some weekend retreats. I wanted to write a book proposal for my second book, and now I'm kind of thinking that that might not happen this year, but it may happen next year. I'm just going to have some water on a sec. I want you to think about the changes that you've had. And also this could be family circumstances, so things that have changed that have been unexpected, or things that have happened that have really been for the good. One thing that I would sort of be writing down is my son really feels like he's come out of himself. So for the first couple of years of his life, he was quite shy, he wanted me a lot, he was quite clingy. All of that was lovely because, you know, of the hugs and all the great stuff, but equally it was quite restrictive in terms of the things that I could do. He's really changed, he's moved out of himself, so think about the changes in your own business as well, and the stuff that has now sort of come to the surface. Okay, next. I want you to think about the bumps in the road, or the challenges that you face. I know, it's so nice. I want you to think about the bumps and the challenges. So maybe there have been things that have been quite stark over this year. And I think this can happen sometimes where the universe or whatever you believe in, you can feel like, I know when I'm not on top of something, because I feel like I learn the lesson again and again and again until I finally get it. And that learning of the lesson before I finally get it, almost like it comes like a big wave and it hits me, and I get to this point where I'm kind of, not rock bottom, that sounds very dramatic, but it's kind of the lesson that I need to learn is displayed to me in such a harsh way where I'm like, all right, I've got it, I hear you, I'm going to do something about it, okay, I'm there. And it's almost like that point where it's like somebody turns the lights on and I can't avoid it any longer. So I want you to think about those challenges that have come up for you and maybe how you've worked through them. And maybe thinking about the boundaries that you've put in place. And one thing that I've really realised is, for me, I think my language has really improved in terms of emailing and closing sales and getting what I want. That sounds very kind of presumptuous, but making things real, I think. I think for a long time I was quite friendly on emails, which of course you want to be friendly and you want to be easy to work with and professional, but sometimes things will become a bit vague. And I would have that moment, especially in the beginning part of the year, where I needed to go to bed at 8 o'clock. I was so tired. I really had that first trimester, like I can't do anymore. But equally, I didn't want things hanging over my head because they would stress me out. So by getting burnt a few times, I was able to go, right, I need to clean this up. I need to work at this language thing. And I need to see what my part is in this and take responsibility for it and take action, most importantly. Also, I want you to think about the tweaks that you've made that have made all the difference. And these could be things in your home life or it could be in your work life, whatever it might be. And I'm going to share one of the tweaks that I've done that's changed everything and give you this system as well. I frequently include this question as the last question if I ever do a talk. So I did a talk at MTV a couple of months ago, and it's really interesting watching people's reaction because I can immediately sort of see it in their body. And the question is, what are you available for and what are you unavailable for? And the reason that I say this is sometimes we can just coast. Sometimes we're so focused on being a nice person or doing the right thing or being kind or being grateful for the opportunity. All of that is perfect. Absolutely. Be all of those things. Be kind, work hard, play hard, be great, get repeat customers, but also don't be a walkover. Don't be somebody who does all the things. And I see it sometimes with my clients where even though I'm not kind of working with them directly day on day in that moment, and I've got clients that I see really, not frequently I would say, but regularly, and I've seen them for the last 5 years, but I've always got my eye on them, almost like kind of your mum's friend who might have still watched you when you were a teenager and you're like, oh gosh, she's going to tell my mum. But it would be that thing of, I had it with a client a little while ago where I knew that she was doing a talk, and I messaged her and I said, are you being paid for this talk? And I didn't need to know the amount, I didn't need to know the kind of nosy details, but I needed to know that she was being paid. I needed to know that her services were being acknowledged because she was providing a brilliant service. And she replied and she was like, oh no, I didn't talk about money. And I just happened to catch in that moment, but there have been changes for me of what I'm available for and unavailable for are sometimes when I get to that point of frustration. So once I've really learned a mistake that I've made, I don't want to repeat it. I don't want to keep doing something. I don't want to trek across London for 2 hours to have a meeting that's never going to come to anything. I'm very particular with my time now. So I guess in that kind of unavailable list, I'm unavailable for time wasters. I'm unavailable for people who aren't ready. I'm unavailable to help people sort out their thoughts and work through that when that is a paid service. So somebody, for example, why can't I say service tonight? Sorry. Somebody, for example, contacted me on Instagram a little while ago, who I vaguely know, and she said she really liked what I was doing and she would love to collaborate. So I said, thank you, that's really kind. What would you like to do? What ideas did you have in mind? And she replied saying, I don't really know. What did you have in mind? And in that moment, it made me feel like, hang on a minute, you're not coming to the table with anything. And I think sometimes, I've talked about this a lot, like when I did went for a meeting for Stylist Live, I went to the table knowing that I would have to, if I got the gig, which I ended up doing, that I would only have to be able to deliver one idea. But I went to the table with 5 or 6. I could do this, I could take it in this direction. Have you thought about this? I know that your demographic are really talking about this. How do we add a new spin on it? So I went there almost like a jukebox machine of just spin me round, whichever one you want, whatever idea you've got. And I went with that enthusiasm and that creativity. And that was something that really kind of came to mind, like that I'm only available for people who are ready and in that kind of two-way conversation in that way. So think about what you're available for in your business too. Also, I want you to consider what is feeling really good, what's been feeling not so good, and what's been feeling a bit indifferent. And I really noticed this as well, considering I was so sick in the early days, that sometimes it was a big effort to kind of have to go and do something, as in like physically get myself dressed without throwing up everywhere. I mean, glamorous at all. But it really made me reassess, like, I love doing this. Or where I would have those hesitations of, oh, I can't believe that I agreed to this, or I didn't charge enough for this, or I should have got a better deal for myself here. So I want you to think about what you're feeling, because ultimately things can sometimes look really good on paper. Like, I know so many coaches would say to me, get a 12-month program in place, get people to sign up for the whole 12 months, take their money, get people on a retainer, and be a premier coach in that way. I could do that. I would know how to do a 12-month program. But does that suit my lifestyle right now? Does that feel good? Does that align with all the things that I want to do? Not really. And I have to, if I'm committing myself in that big way, even though it would be hugely financially rewarding, it has to feel good. Because I'm a big believer that if you focus on those things, I'm just going to change position, 1 second. I'm a big believer that if you focus on those things that feel really good, you will get more of those things, because people will see you in your elements. People will recognize you showing up as you and doing what it is that you're meant to do in the world. If that doesn't sound a bit woo-woo and hippie, if it probably does a little bit, but really focusing on those key elements, that stuff that you're really great at. Also thinking about what's been going on with your self-care. And self-care sometimes can be banded around of like health spas and personal trainers and green juices and things like that. But really thinking about, how have you been looking after yourself over the next 6 months? Have you been even making yourself a priority? Again, I know if I don't get that small, see, already I'm playing it down. I know that if I don't get that piece of the pie for myself, where I have 5 minutes, or where I can go for a walk on the heath, or wherever it might be, if I don't have that on the regular, I know I start to deplete very, very quickly. And sometimes we're in those periods of our life where it's like, just get the job done, we're all really busy, let's crack on. But sooner or later that does catch up with you. So in all honesty, I want you to think about how you've been taking care of things, how you've been taking care of yourself, your environment, your boundaries, your energy, your sleep, your health and well-being. I don't want to talk about diets or exercise or anything like that, but I want you to recognize whether it's actually been a consideration or whether it's something that you continually have to push to the side. So I just want you to make some final notes around this, about what's been going on over the last 6 months. And be really honest. As I mentioned, I'm recording this as a podcast, so you can come back to it whenever you like. It will be on iTunes very shortly. But I want you to think about all of those elements and write them and capture them in whatever way suits you, just so you can really get to grips with what's going on. So now what I'm going to do is share something that's going to help you plan the next 6 months ahead. And this really came from a state that I was in that I wasn't comfortable with. So about a year ago, I was feeling really burnt out. I was feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling like I was starting things, but then they'd kind of fall off the wayside. Or something would happen and then it would just disappear again. I didn't feel like I was being consistent. I didn't feel like I was on that wavy line of working towards what it was that I was building. I felt quite confused quite a lot of the time. I had bouts of confidence. I felt scattered. I just didn't feel like I was in a really great, solid place. And this is not to be dramatic, like nothing was seriously wrong, but I did have this sense of going, I can do this better. There must be a better way. There must be a way that I can do this with more ease and flow. And it's funny when you're in that circumstance sometimes, is that's when you're bombarded on social media with just follow my 7 keys to success, or watch my 3-part training series, or do this, or buy this course in SEO. And I just felt like things were flying at me. Things were coming from all directions. And I needed to go back to a place where I went, hang on about, I need to create my own system here. So I turned off notifications on social media. I muted some people. I didn't unfollow, but I just had to kind of pull back the reins. I needed to kind of almost get, you know, when you put a tent in a bag and you have to go, yeah, exactly, Claire, totally. This happens all the time, where I needed to put that tent away in that bag and pull it really tight and kind of go, right, let's start from this place right now. So one thing that I talk about a lot with my clients is sometimes there's this moment where, if it was like, what's that game called? Is it Mousetrap? Where you start to kind of, you set the marble going down and you put it down, and then it has to kind of have enough momentum to start to move the mechanism. Or if you imagine kind of lining up the dominoes. So if you wanted to do one of those domino tricks, actually lining up the dominoes, even though that feels like the hard work, like really lining them up, really figuring out what the pattern's going to look like, getting the exact amount between, that is nothing without you almost pressing go on it and getting going. And so this is what happens in terms of, I never lost the enthusiasm for my business. I had the ideas. I was always thinking about inspiration. I always continued to kind of serve my clients and keep going for what I wanted to do. But what I wasn't doing was finding that moment where I would like flick the domino so it would start to move and ricochet in that way. And so what would happen is, hello, thanks for joining, is I would have all the excitement and the ideas, and suddenly I needed to have that moment and that system where I was able to press go. And this is something that I say a lot whenever I do live talks, is if people go away from the talk just feeling motivated and inspired, I haven't done my job properly, because I want you to move into that momentum state where you actually do stuff with the information, where you actually implement it, because otherwise you become one of those people who's going to do something. Oh, I'm definitely going to do that. And I had that when I was 18, when I moved to London. You know, I was lucky enough and worked hard enough to get a place at drama school, and so many people would say to me, oh, I was going to do that, but like in the end, like, oh, I didn't, or so-and-so was going to do that, or it didn't happen. And I always used to just say, there's nothing special about me. I just got myself in the game to crack on and do all of the things. So this overwhelmed, burnt out state, what did it look like? Okay, it looked like loads of post-it notes. It looked like oodles of notebooks that I was trying to perfectly write in. I don't have perfect handwriting. In fact, it's a little wild at times. But for some reason, like, I'd be trying to like pull it all together in that way. It looked like scraps of paper. It looked like endless to-do lists. It looked like my desk looking like somebody had thrown up over it and everything was just really scattered. Or I found that I wasn't working at my desk, which was another thing. So my business was just becoming a bit unfocused. It was becoming a bit stretched, and it wasn't really kind of contained in that way. So what I wanted to do was to look for a new system. And I looked at different things. I was like, maybe it's a Google Doc thing, or maybe it's a special notebook with different filing things. And I tried all kinds of things. And one thing that I suddenly realised was I needed to have something that was digital. And I'm not going to sell you a product, by the way. I just suddenly had that thought of like, and here's the technology that I'm going to share with you. It costs £4 million. No, this is something that's completely free and that you can implement and do it in your own way. But and even if you don't use this thing, you can use the kind of principles of it. Sorry, I just thought I would say that as well. So I needed something that was going to be digital, something I could capture my ideas on my phone, but also my computer wherever I was working. Because the thing is, my ideas often don't come to me when I need them, when I'm sitting at my desk going, come on, inspiration, come on. They come to me in the park or out and about, or I hear something, or when I'm, I don't know, in an Uber home after a client session. I want to be able to capture stuff because otherwise they go. And one thing that I would do is I would end up writing in the back of a notebook, and it was just kind of pointless because it wasn't going anywhere. So my kind of rules for the system were, I wanted to be able to capture my ideas in the moment or for later. So if I suddenly had that moment of like, oh my goodness, I've got to do that, I've got to email that person tomorrow, I needed a system where I could take action quickly. Or if I came up with, I don't know, a book idea, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to develop this product one day, or whatever it might be, I needed to be able to capture it in a way that worked in that way. I also wanted to be able to measure my success. So to be able to measure whether I was actually on or off, whether I was actually moving forward in what I was doing. Was I actually getting stuff done? That was really important. Also, I needed to be able to find a way where I could brain dump all the things that were in my head. So that could be home, life, kids, me, and not have them conflicting and not have them sort of all shouting for my attention, but that they could be really ordered and accessible as and when I needed them. Also, it was important that I'd be able to share things. So I'd be able to share them with my partner or whoever I wanted, all that kind of stuff. Also, I wanted to be able to see my progress. So having that moment of really checking in, going, I'm doing this. This feels really good. And it's been a system that I've been using for this year, and it's just been so great because, again, if we talk about momentum and that sense of like, oh my goodness, I'm actually doing this, it feels really good. And also as well, having everything in one place, it really makes me check in with, is my vision strong? Are all of the things I'm working on and thinking about and giving my time and energy to, are they actually going to get me where I want to go to? Or am I just being busy? Am I just working to other people's agendas? Or am I just helping other people out? And it's been a really good assessment where I'm like, wow, I spend a lot of time doing that and I'm not even bothered about it. Or why am I doing that instead of paying for somebody to do that? Or that's so old, like this isn't really a thing anymore. So I'm just changing position. There we go. Sorry for people listening on the podcast. They'll be like, oh, that's an unpleasant noise. Okay, so what I did was I found this technology called Evernote. And I had heard of it before. But the reason that I love it is because I can create these different notebooks, digital notebooks within the same program. So I'm going to give you a few things that are going to help you do your planning and separate all of your ideas so things start to become obvious. Now I'm going to share some of my notebook titles with you, and you might go, that doesn't work for me. Don't worry, ignore it, move on. Doesn't matter, forget I even said it. But think about what your notebook titles are going to be. So one thing I knew I wanted to do was have something for podcasts. So whether that was guests that I was thinking about, guests that I'd actually had booked in, people that I'd emailed but hadn't come back to me. Just being able to capture everything, all podcast related, in one notebook, because everything is in my email box. And sometimes you can have that moment of like, did that person come back to me? What's happening? What's going on? So maybe it's not podcast for you, maybe it's email marketing or your newsletter, or you run events or whatever it might be. But think about what your notebook would look like in those kind of terms. Next, I have a content ideas type situation. So I have a lot of content ideas. I'm always thinking about stuff that comes up with clients or stuff I want to share, or sometimes I'll get an inspiration and go, oh, that would make a really great blog post. And I made a commitment to myself to create this notebook within this Evernote thing where I just go, right, all the content ideas are going in there. Sometimes they were completely and utterly fully formed, like I might have 5 ways to, I don't know, combat overwhelm, and I would be able to write them all down. Sometimes it was just a little snippet of an idea, or sometimes it was a quote that I knew I wanted to share, or a phrase, like I did one of my most popular Instagram post the other day, which was all about, there are people making millions out there who don't know the difference between you and you are. And it was so kind of popular because people were like, oh my goodness, yes, why do people not know how to use apostrophes, or why can people not spell but yet they're making all this money, or whatever it might be. So really thinking about those content ideas and being able to capture them in the same place. Because when inspiration is low, or you don't know what you're doing, or you feel like you're starting from scratch, you want to create that safe hub for yourself where you know you can kind of come back to it again and again. I then had something which sometimes is separated into different people in my house, but just the things to buy. So sometimes it can be like pick up milk on the way home, or my child needs, I don't know, new shoes, or we've run out of, like, I always like to have about 16 toilet rolls in the cupboard because I'm a bit weird like that, but like I need to top up bleach or whatever it might be. But having things to buy, but also I like to have a section within that notebook of things to buy in a kind of wish list scenario. So there might be like, I don't know, books that I've heard about that I think, oh yeah, I'd like to add that to my list, or I've got my eye on getting some new cutlery. Oh, cutlery's fine, but you know, it's getting a bit old. I'd like to replace those sort of things. I had it for when we wanted a new sofa. I stuck it on that kind of future list and really thinking about it in that way. So having things to buy that are not only kind of prevalent right now, but also going forward too. Also some sort of admin of stuff that you really want to work through. So for example, all my pregnancy appointments, I've had them as a list. I had a very big baby the first time, this one might be big as well, but having those appointments and those dates as a list and being able to tick them off, even though I know people are all like, enjoy your pregnancy, have a great time, I've been like, yeah, this is great, but also I'm really glad to kind of keep progressing and keep moving forward within it. Another thing that I do is I have a client progress notebook. So for every client that I'm working with, or every project that I'm working on, I like to have something that's contained. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a corporate gig where I just have to be really careful about confidentiality here as well, where I did a team training, and it was a 2.5 hour workshop. So in that notebook, I had everything from the brief of the CEO of the company. I also sent a questionnaire in advance because I wanted to know from the different members of the team what they were struggling with, what they needed help with, what they were loving, what they wanted to tweak, all that good stuff. And I was able to capture the ideas going forward. And then underneath, I was able to create my presentation. I was able to create the work. And then I was able to put together something at the end where I followed up, where I was able to share my notes. So again, instead of things being caught up in email, and sometimes I just copy and paste things and put them in there, it's been really great to have that. Also with client progress. So there's a client that I'm working with on Friday, for example. We're doing a strategy day on Friday daytime, and I did one with her a month ago. So instead of having all of that in a notebook, I made sure that I wrote our objectives for the next one in our current notebook, so I knew sort of what I needed to focus on and that we were on the same page, because it's always really important that our time together is going to be focused. I also have a gratitude list. So sometimes I just like to capture really lovely moments of the day, however big, however small, but sometimes I know that I can fall into I haven't done enough, or that didn't go well, and I can be a bit tough on myself sometimes. So stopping there and going, hang about, that's not the full story here. Why have you, sorry, I've just got to plug this in, one sec. Why are you only telling half of the story here? Because there are so many other great elements to it. Is that plugged in? Oh, I can't wait to get some kind of agility back. Sorry, people on the podcast. Here we go. Let's plug this in. Okay. We should be winning. There we go. Can you still hear me? I think we can. Give me a thumbs up if you can. Thumbs up. Okay, and so a gratitude list. Another thing that I write is something like interesting people. So people who I've maybe heard on a podcast, people that I know I need to get in touch with, or people, thank you Claire, just people who are in my head or in the mix, or maybe they're people on Instagram that I follow that I really love what they do, or they are people that they make me feel good, or whatever it might be. So capturing those people, and then you can really seek them out. So what I hope you can kind of get from this is that I'm building a picture for myself. I'm building a system for myself where I'm setting myself up to win. Because again, we all have these moments where we're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. This feels really slow. This didn't happen. The kids have got sick, whatever it might be. But this sort of system of having these different areas, it just helps bring you back to one place every single time. Another thing that I like to do is a follow-up notebook. So maybe I've pitched to somebody, or maybe somebody has inquired about my coaching, but then, you have a bit of a dialogue and then they don't come back, or, I never want to put that pressure on people. So sometimes I just put them on my follow-up list, and that could be like, I'm doing this and this is happening, like, are you interested in this, or I've got something going on, whatever it might be, because that might be the time that they need it. But making sure that I can add them on that follow-up list and add a bit of background knowledge. I never just want to kind of churn out the same stuff. Or I get loads of DMs on Instagram where people it's almost like they've just put my name in, and it just doesn't feel personal, Okay, tasks in business. So one thing that I'm really looking to do over the next 6 months is expand my team, expand the people that work with me, expand the stuff that I'm doing myself and the stuff that I'm outsourcing. So this has been one thing that I've been working on and really thinking about, what are the tasks in my business? What are the things that take up my time? And this has happened in a kind of different part. So when I first started doing this, I realised that I was quite scattered in the way that I wasn't necessarily batching things. So the quotes, for example, that I do on Instagram, I would do them separately. I would wake up and I would create it. And I thought, hang about, and this is when you kind of see the system in place, is if I go back to my content ideas, technically I should often have about 20 of these sort of quotes or things that have popped up. I then create them all at once, save them on my phone, and I've got them whenever I need them. So I'm always sort of in that position where I'm good to go, where something can just be quickly released in that way and I don't have to think about it. And it took me a long time to get to this place, because I think sometimes there's this pressure to always be showing up or always be live or always kind of be time relevant and things like that. But sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And I know sometimes if I want to put something out at 7 o'clock in the morning, it may not be ready or it may not be in the best possible position. And I know, like, for example, this podcast, I will put it live tonight. I've got another one going live tomorrow, but I will set that all up for tomorrow so I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think, right, I've got to get up at 6 and do it then. It will all be organised and all scheduled in that way. Okay, I also have daily to-dos and a weekly list as well. And other things that I just like to capture are markers that I am doing well, or things that are showing me, like indications that I'm on the right track. So sometimes we can have this moment where we might email somebody and somebody goes, I love what you're doing, but I'm going on holiday, so it's not relevant for me right now. Of course, absolutely fine. And there would be some people though who would just go, oh, I can't believe she's going on holiday. Oh my goodness, like I spent all that time doing that picture, or I've spent all that time and it's all being wasted. That would be a moment where you write it on your track, indication that you're on track and you're doing things in that way. Because it's not a flat no. It's not a, we don't like you, so don't even ask us again. It's a no, but it could be a yes very soon. So really understanding that feedback that people are giving you, of when people, you might be telling, I don't know, a friend's husband in the pub at parents' evening, or not parents' evening, but like a school thing or whatever. And suddenly somebody says to you, wow, that sounds like a great business idea. Or I bet you're really popular because I know so many people that really struggle with X, Y, and Z. So listen out for those lovely bits of feedback, or those affirming moments where you can have that pat on your back and go, yeah, actually, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And again, that will take you back to momentum. It will take you back to that place of feeling really positive, of feeling like you're on track, all there. I wanted to finish this off because I could see the countdown going on Instagram live, and it made me a bit panicked. So I'm going back to the final thing that I do, which is sometimes people forget to think about the money and think about what they're actually earning from their business and what's working, what's kind of coming in, and what is taking their focus. So at the beginning of every month, I create a brand new notebook, and I set a goal for that month of what I want to earn. And sometimes at the beginning of the exercise, the goal that I write down changes and it increases by the end of what I write. Because then what I do is I write down, and some of these things are similar because these are direct debits, these are things that are happening again and again, is that I write down the all the things that I have to pay that month. So this could be basics such as, oh, I know I've got a water bill coming out this month, or a TV license, or my website subscription, or my phone bill, whatever it might be. I write down those fundamentals, because for me it's really important that I see this money as being real, stuff that I'm actually creating, and making sure that I'm on track. I then write down the date next to each of those things and make sure that I'm organised and prepared well in advance. Then I also write down things that I know that I want to purchase that month. So that could be an event ticket. It could be, like, for example, in July, there's going to be loads of baby things that I want to buy. Most of it's done, to be fair. But, you know, say I was doing it in December, I would be thinking about the Christmas stuff that I want to purchase, even though I'm not a massive lover of Christmas. But again, it's thinking about these sort of things and pulling them down on paper, because what I don't like are surprises where you suddenly get these big bills out of the blue and you're like, oh gosh, I wasn't expecting that. Like, the money's there, but I don't like being caught unawares. I like to be prepared and ahead of the game. I also then think about that stuff that I want to purchase or invest in that's going to change my life in some way. So this could be investing, it could be buying a system that is going to work in a better way. It could be doing something for myself that my future self is going to be super grateful for. You know, like those things where you're like, okay, it feels like a big investment right now, but I know I'm not going to regret this purchase. I know that this is going to be the right move for me. So I think about money in those sort of things. And then also I think as a final part, like, just money that I want to bring in. So maybe I have a purpose for it. Maybe there's things that I want to buy. Maybe I'm looking to create a savings goal. Maybe, I don't know, there's something that I want to do with it. And I really consider what feels really good, because my aim of the game always is not just to meet that necessity goal, because even if within an inch of your life you were meeting those financial goals of stuff that you physically had going out, you want to have wiggle room. Like, life is too short. You want to feel like you've got purchase power, that you feel really good, that you can treat yourself if you want to, and you know, have a lovely time. That is what life is all about, hey. Okay, so I then write everything down. And with something like money, for example, I know it can be not a triggering topic, but sometimes, because I'm not following a blueprint, I can get a bit scared. Not scared, that's not the right word, but it's something I need to keep a check on. Because I know for years it was something that I used to do where I would over-deliver and undercharge all the time. And so I know that there are sort of two patterns that run simultaneously in my head. And I've done a lot of money mindset work to be able to release those and work with those. And so in that money notebook, even though it looks very logical of like stuff that I want to create, money goals, stuff that I'm working on, it's very logical and strategic, I always make a bit of room for journaling within there, and to give myself that time and space to actually acknowledge when I'm making really good moves or when I'm getting really organised. I track it all. I make sure that I'm noticing all the great things that I'm doing. Because there would have been things for years, like I would have never asked for the money up front. I would always be the last person to get paid. Or I wouldn't negotiate. Or if somebody just didn't mention a budget, I would just presume that they didn't have one. Not that they were just tight and didn't want to pay and they were like, well, she hasn't asked for money, so I'm not going to offer it. So I really make a note of all those things. So as a final point with these notebooks, you may be thinking, actually there's a topic that I really struggle with, or there's an area of my business that feels a lot harder. One of the things that comes up from my clients all the time is about visibility. Oh my goodness, I don't want to put myself out there, or I'm an introvert, or I feel scared about selling these things. So what I encourage people to do in terms of that planning is to really think about what that looks like when they're doing the ideal version of what it is that they want. So if, for example, they want more visibility on Instagram, I make sure that they figure out a plan of how they're going to do that. So that might be like, right, every day I'm always going to post once. That's the thing. So being able to measure that and, writing it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and making sure that you have that kind of ticking off in that situation. But then also noticing those little things and being able to capture them. And it could be, I shared this really vulnerable piece, even though I was frightened to do something. But the bigger mission of my business or my brand kept me on track. Or it could be, I showed up today, even though I didn't feel like it. Or I went to a networking event, even though I was really busy, and even though I showed up and I was 5 minutes late and I was the last one in the room. It's just all, again, those pats on the back. Because as I've mentioned before, if you keep doing that, and if you keep really not acknowledging all the progress, that's how you're going to make that progress. That's how you're going to keep moving forward, because again, it makes it real. It's not just a whimsical idea that's on a piece of paper. It's not just something that you're vaguely considering or thinking about, or doing that thing of, wouldn't it be cool if? You're actually doing it. You're actually going forward with it. So that's the end of my notes. I hope you found this useful. I've been going for an hour and a quarter now, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm doing the final round of my Working Smartly course this month, where I'm going to be helping people, supporting people via email. There's all the content available there for you. It's about working smart, not hard. It's about increasing your income. It's about creating passive income. It's about really going to the next level and building the business that you want to, that fits with you, your personality, your circumstances. So not necessarily just following a blue, oh, thank you, Claire, that is not, it's not a blueprint of anybody else's. And I think this is one thing that I really struggled with for years and years, is I was trying to fit myself into a mold that somebody else had created. And that was never going to work for me, because I'd never met anybody who has about 15 different income streams, who is an actor, a writer, a podcaster, a speaker. It was really difficult to be able to find that role model, and I didn't really feel like it existed. And what I've now learned to do is to create these systems that actually work for me, that actually work with my lifestyle. I talk about this all the time on the podcast, of how when my son was 6 months, I had a discovery call with a coach, and he was saying, what time does your son get up? And I said 5 o'clock or something, and he was like, you need to get up at 4. Get up at 4. That's when you're going to do your work, and you've got to smash through your goals. And I know on paper what he's saying, but again, it just didn't feel good. So whatever you take away from this training, I want you to go back to what feels good. And of course, there's going to be things where you might have to reassess stuff. You may have put way too much stuff on your to-do list of stuff that you have to achieve, and you haven't done any of it because actually it's all too overwhelming. It all feels like a bit of an uphill struggle. So maybe you need to do less and strip it back. Or you might have the opposite situation where you actually need to dream bigger and go, actually, I really want this business to work. I really want to go to the next level. I really want to be excited about the next chapter. And I'm tired of playing small. I'm tired of just having a go, and that you're ready to actually go there and go to that next level. So if you want to join me tomorrow, please do. The link is going to be in the description box, nikkieraby.com/working smartly. I'm going to be doing it with you. I'm 8 months pregnant. I'm due in August. My business still needs to be in existence. It still needs to make money. It will make money because I've got a plan. I've always got a plan, I mentioned. But also, I know that becoming a parent doesn't mean that my life is over, because as much, and it's interesting because people will always say that, oh, well, now you're doing this, are you going to give up, or oh, is this the end for you? And it sounds very sassy and aggressive, but I really believe it's just the beginning for me, and I still just feel like I'm getting started. And I know it's the same for you. I know that you've had a lot of success. I know that you've done lots of great things already, but now what I'm interested in is how you're going to take that to the next level. A woman friend of mine the other day is going for investment at the moment. She's built a fantastic app with a community of 60,000 people, and she wants to get investment, be introduced to the right people. And I have another friend who's invented an app, and the first thing that I thought was, I need to introduce you to this person because they've gained investment. She knows how to do it. She can shortcut the process. And I think one final moment on this in terms of the plan is that we can get very focused on our little bubble that is around us. And actually, one thing that has helped pull me forward every step of the way is, what is this plan actually going to mean? Where is my value? What is my impact? What do I want to do? My partner and I were saying the other day, wouldn't it be cool if we could put a student through drama school? That was one of our goals. Like, wouldn't that be great? Like, we could just pay for the fees and it was done. How cool would that be to be able to support somebody and but encourage them and mentor them and be that supportive couple for them going through a journey that maybe they don't necessarily think is available to them. Once I start to spider those things out and really think about what does this mean, that's when it gets really exciting. And I look at my son and I feel very passionate that he sees mummy working as a great thing. And I've always done that whenever I've done projects or whenever I'm at work or whenever I'm going out for the day. I always make sure I top and tail the day. I let him know what I'm doing, who I was speaking to. I mean, I might just say a random name and he, it's over his head, but I'm communicating it. I'm showing him that I love what I do, because I do, and I want him to do the same. And I want him to have options, and I want him to have a blend of his own life and work, whatever that looks like. It probably hasn't even been invented yet, but I want him to create that for himself, and I want him to know that all of these things are possible. So whenever you get stuck, and even if you've just listened to this and thinking, oh my goodness, I've got so much to do now, she's just given me loads of tasks, keep going back to that bigger mission. Why are you doing this? Why are you not doing something else that may just be easier? Going and working in a supermarket, show up, put your cashier uniform on, do that. There must be a reason why you are pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and delving deeper, and go back to all of those things that perhaps you've forgotten about. Even if it feels a bit cringe to acknowledge your success or your wins, I'm giving you full permission. In fact, I am ordering it from you. So thank you so much for listening once again. If you know somebody that would really enjoy this, it will be on it will be up. You can share it, tag somebody, share it in your stories, and I'm very grateful that you've listened this far. Thank you so much. And don't forget to link down below to Working Smartly. We're getting going tomorrow. Can't wait. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Take it easy. Bye.